Hello and welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host Liam, aka Himbar, and today I'll be going over the books on my TBR and my MBR for spring of 2022. Okay, so like I explained in my last video, I used to do this for monthly, and now since I've been making less videos, I decided it would be good to at least do it quarterly. Now, I don't know if I'll continue doing that, especially since if you know me, that most of my TBR is really just an MBR. And I do not plan out months in advance. I plan out in like monthly things, and this year I haven't even been doing that. So this video should be rather short. It's going to be full of random books, kind of, because some of these books I almost guarantee you I will not read at all in spring, and I probably won't even read for years, because that's just how my mood works. And so, because right now I'm kind of coming off of Forgotten Realms thing, I'm really in a big mood for sci-fi right now, since I finished Demon in White, I'm reading Sword of Lictor, I'm reading Kingdoms of Death. I'm hoping, but I'm also really trying to finish series. So I guess I can show you the first book as far as finishing series goes, and that is Crucible, The Trials of Cedric the Mad by Troy Denning. This is the last book in the Avatar series. If you watched what I read in winter, I read the first 4, so I'm trying to finish the 5th out. And this one's by Troy Denning, who wrote the 3rd book in the series, which is pretty good, so hopefully this one's good. This came out in 1998, which is almost 10 years after the first 3 books, so I don't really know how they're going to connect it. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but it should be interesting. And then as far as that sci-fi mood goes, this is a book I picked up at the very end of last year, and it's Elder Race by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is a book about a planet, I believe, that had lost contact and regains it, and so they kind of reverted to primitive things. So if you read from the woman's perspective, I believe, who has been on this planet, it's kind of fantasy, like the science is magic. And then you read from the guy, who I believe is an anthropologist, and I majored in anthropology, so that's kind of what made me want to buy it, especially since it's so short. And I've never read anything by Adrian Tchaikovsky, so I thought this would be a good introduction, since I believe this is a standalone, and it's so short. But he speaks in terms of science, and so some passages will be both. You'll have both of their versions side by side to essentially translate their translations of what's, the thought, like what's going on, like how they explain their reality. And like I said, I'm in a mood for sci-fi right now, and so that just sounds fun. And then we have Realms of Valor, which is an anthology. There's a bunch of Realms of anthologies. I've read one, I believe. I read the Halls of Stormweather anthology, which is one of the few that's not a Realms of. And then I've read Realms of War, which honestly has one of my favorite books, or favorite short stories I've ever read in it, Black Arrow by Bruce R. Cordell. This one has a bunch of stories in it. It's got that really old-fashioned, not very good cover. Elminster doesn't look good, Driss doesn't look good. Whoever this lady is, she looks fine. But there's a Douglas Niles story in here, Ed Greenwood, looks like an Elminster one. Christy Golding, if you've played Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, Baldur's Gate, Ascent to Avernus, if you've seen Jander Sunstar, or if you've read the novel Vampire in the Mist, that's a short story about him. Christy Golding is a great author. I think she wrote a decent amount of Warcraft stories, which I hear are pretty good. We have The Bargain by Elaine Cunningham. We have a David Cook one. Scott Cianson, which I wonder if it's related to the Avatar series because he wrote the first 2 Avatar books. Mark Anthony, James Lauder, who wrote one of the Avatar books as well, Gene Robb, Troy Denning, who I know this one is an Avatar tie-in, and then Ari Salvatore, which is almost certainly a Driss one. And they each have their own illustrations, so that's cool. I actually bought that on accident. I ordered it online thinking it was something else, and I got it, and I was like, oh, that's cool, I don't even have a copy of that yet, so. And then the next Elminster book, which I think takes place 700 years after the second one. It's interesting because I always felt like I knew Elminster as a character, but reading his first 2 books, Elminster the Making of Mage and Elminster Mythdraenor, which I have reviews for both of, that I don't, I really feel like I don't know Elminster as a character, at least not young Elminster. I didn't know the way it took him to become the Elminster we know in the current Forgotten Realms. And so, as you can see on this cover, he's still relatively young here. And so, I'm really looking forward to this one. It sounds interesting. I believe it's like I said, he like wakes up, I believe, from like centuries long sleep. I'm not really sure. I haven't started. So, but Ed Greenwood, who's the creator of the Forgotten Realms, and he makes it come alive like no other. So, though he's rather a love-hate author, I feel like you either really like him or you really don't. And I'm one of the people who really likes him. He's very much inspired by Liber, I believe. That's something I can get on board with. And then along those lines, we have R.A. Salvatore. This is book 12, I believe, in The Legend of Drizzt. I read The Silent Blade late last year, and I actually enjoyed it, which was nice, because I don't enjoy most of the Drizzt books, or I don't enjoy them that much. The first three were, I mean, I've gone over this a while. I have not a very good relationship with Salvatore, but I did enjoy The Silent Blade, and Spine of the World I actually hear bad things about, so we'll see, but we'll see if it's any good. I was wanting to get to this one sooner rather than later. It's about 400 pages, but I mean, it's not very long, honestly. And then we have Swords Against Wizardry. This is book 4 in the little compilations of Fall from the Great Mouser stories. So the first 3 I read last year, and those became some of my favorite books. Like, Liber is now one of my favorite authors. And you love it because his old, like, 1970 copies have cigarette ads in them. But they're really short, they're not that long. I've been meaning to get to this one for a while, which is why I have it with me, considering I don't have like almost any books with me. But Liber is just the Grand Master of Sword and Sorcery. He's the one who named the Sword and Sorcery genre. If you haven't read Liber, he's just a great fantasy author. Like, this, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser are like the duo. Now, another book I don't have with me, though I have a copy by Liber that I've been wanting to get to, which I think is kind of sci-fi, might be a little horror. I'm not really sure, but it's called Gather Darkness, which is one of the coolest titles because it's Gather, Darkness, exclamation point. And that's also by Liber. I have a cool copy that has a Darrow K. Sweet cover. I'll probably put that on the screen. But I'm really wanting to get to that as well. And so I might listen to it in an audiobook if I can't get my copy in time or whenever I feel like reading it precisely. Or I might get it on Kindle. But speaking of Kindle, some books just aren't on it. I was looking for this book, it didn't have an audiobook, it wasn't on Kindle, and I don't have my copy with me, but I was thinking about reading it. I was thinking about making a buddy read, but since it's not an audiobook and there seems to be no ebook option, I might not make it a buddy read, just so y'all out there who like those options aren't, you know, not joining me. That's the Sword of RHIANNON by Lee Brackett. This is a classic Sword and Planet novel. I believe it's from the 1950s. My copy is actually from the 1950s, but maybe it's from the 1940s. And I hear really good things. Owen Edwards, I don't believe he was the one who originally told me about it, but he was the one, I think, that was talking about it that made me be like, okay, I really need to go and get a copy of this. I haven't read almost any Sword and Planet. I've read some short stories, but I still have also been needing to get to A Princess of Mars, which I believe there's an audiobook that is free for Audible members. And I don't have my copy with me again, so Princess of Mars is the first of the Barsoom books, or John Carter books, though I believe it's generally called Barsoom because he doesn't appear in all of them, so I call it John Carter when he's not in all of them. But I've been wanting to read that as well. That is by Edgar Rice Burroughs. He's the creator of Tarzan. Those are from over 100 years ago, I believe, so I wanted to try that too. Especially since I had just finished Demon in White, and I just feel like there's a lot of Sword and Planet influence there that I haven't tried. And speaking of which, I want to read Sword and Planet, which is an anthology that came out by Bain, I believe, recently, edited by Christopher Rocchio, but it has Queen Amid Ashes, I believe, in it, which is a Sun Eater short story, and I haven't read any of the Sun Eater short stories besides Lesser Devil, which is a novella. And so I want to read those as well. I want to read some other short stories too, but probably more like the Androgyne Fix. There's an Androgyne Fix short story by DJ Butler in the Sword and Planet anthology, and he is a great author. I've read like 7 or so books by this guy now, most recently being In the Palace of Shadow and Joy, which I have a review for, and he's probably one of my favorite authors. And speaking of which, here's another book by him, Serpent Daughter. This is book 4 in the Witchy War series. It was kind of like a soft trilogy is what he called the first 3 books. So it's been a while since I've been in the series, because I was like, oh, I finished the soft trilogy, I'll just wait a minute or whatever. And so now I have a copy of Serpent Daughter, and they're quite big, they're quite thick, they're slow paced, really deep and rich. It's like alternate history America. And they also have some of the best covers in my opinion. The first one's Witchy Eye, but these are some great books if you like alternate history fantasy. Really, really well done. really well done. And then back with sci-fi, we have Dune Messiah. So I read Dune before I started my channel last year in May, and I really enjoyed it. I read it with my brother, and I'm thinking about reading Dune Messiah with my brother again. I got him a copy of Dune Messiah, I believe, for Christmas, and then bought myself a copy so I could read it myself. It's not very long, and I didn't have any problem reading Dune, so I could probably get through this really quickly. I just have to take the time to do it. So I don't know when that'll be. I do want to continue my Dune saga, but again, I don't know when that'll be. So considering that, I just want to read more sci-fi right now, like I said. Along those lines, I want to read CLIGELS Saga, which is book 3 in the Dying Earth, which is kind of sci-fi. It's more science fantasy. So I don't have my copy again with me, but I really want to read it. The last one I read was A Quest for Symbolists, which is the one written by Michael Shea instead. It's kind of a book 2.5, which takes place after book 2. I hear it's ignored and that book 3 takes place right after book 2, and so book 2.5 is like an alternate universe type of take, kind of thing, right? Because it didn't actually happen. The author, Jack Vance, acted like it doesn't exist, essentially, and Jack Vance is the original author, so I guess he can do whatever he wants. So I do want to read CLIGELS Saga as well, though. And then as I read Nine Princes in Amber in December, and I wanted to get through at least the first 5 books. I only have copies of the first 3, but that is because the first 5 are like a cycle, and the second 5 are a slightly different series of sorts, different arc. So we have the Guns of Avalon, which is book 2. So that has something to do with the fact that Amber you can't have guns in Amber. So that's like, this book takes place with real realities and several realities and manipulating those realities, and it's very, very interesting. The first book starts with someone who has amnesia and the world is open before him, and you get to experience it as well as a newcomer that way. So really well done. I hear Zelazny, it's great. That was my first Zelazny book I read, so I'm looking forward to Guns of Avalon. Hopefully I'll get to it in the spring, I don't know. And then the last book I have here, and that is Masks of Silver by Rosemary Jones. Now, she's written 3 D&D books, 2 novels, 1 novella, and I've read her City of the Dead and her Cold Steel and Secrets, and have yet to read her last one. But I found this at Barnes & Noble. I wasn't expecting it. This is like right before her audiobook came out, because the audiobook just came out for this, but this book is almost a year old, I believe. And it's a mystery, kind of like a classical mystery novel, but with a Lovecraftian setting, so it's set in Arkham. I don't know how the publishing rights work on this, but I know Rosemary Jones is a good author, so I'm looking forward to reading this. Hopefully sooner rather than later, especially since the sequel, I believe, comes out any day. And then kind of like I mentioned before, I hope to have the books I am in the middle of reading right now done, obviously, like Qualia Drop, Kingdoms of Death, The Sword of the Lictor, and maybe Dead House Gates. I'm also wanting to get back into buddy reads. I've been doing some buddy reads with Tasky on the Excessive Detail Discord server. I'm hoping to chat with him soon, so we'll have that up here as well. I'm thinking my idea for buddy reads that I had before the new year was to do standalones, so I wouldn't be asking anyone to start another series, because I'm already in the middle of over 50 series, and I didn't think that was a good idea. So some of the other books I'm kind of thinking about reading would be The Golden Key, which is by 3 female fantasy authors. It's standalone. I believe someone might have written a sequel, but the novel's written as standalone. It's quite chunky. I don't have my copy with me, but I hear good things. I'm pretty sure it's got Michael Whalen cover art in it as well. I'm not exactly sure, but I'll have a picture up of it here. And then the one book that I'm really hoping to read, probably as the buddy read in April, let me know what you think, is House of Suns by Alistair Reynolds. So this is my sci-fi feels right now, and I have never read anything by Alistair Reynolds. This is a book I've been wanting to read for a while. I have a copy, but I don't have it with me, so it's a shame. But I'm thinking maybe also, I used to make my videos for the buddy read like right before the month started, and I don't have a very big channel, so I had generally very few joining me, which is fine, you know. But I'm sure one of those buddy reads, at least I had no one joining me, but I mean, like, so I'm hoping to do more buddy reads. I'm thinking I'll just start it off again with House of Suns, which I hear pretty good things about, saying it's a standalone, and it's pretty interesting. I think it's set millions of years in the future, which is not generally how far the far future settings are set in. So I'm interested to see what this our fictional universe is like. And one that's not something I'd probably do as a buddy read, but one I forgot to mention earlier because I don't have my copy again here with me, is The Bloody Sun by Marion Zimmer Bradley. Now, I read the first 2 Darkover books last year around the time I read Dune. That was The Planet Savers and The Sword of Aldonis, and I enjoyed them. They were actually rather short. The first one's probably a novella, the second one maybe a short novel. Bloody Sun's more about typical 300 or so pages. And they're Darkover novels, which is to say that they're science fantasy of sorts in a Marion Zimmer Bradley style. I read one of her short stories in Thieves' World. To be honest, I liked Darkover. Actually, the copy I had a little short story in the middle, which I found very disturbing. And that's my problem kind of with Marion Zimmer Bradley, is that she's one of those, you know, like, she was not a very good person, just to put it bluntly, okay? And, like, to the point where it's, like, actually, it's not like she has the wrong political opinion compared to you, no, she's, like, did some bad stuff, right? And so, like, it's kind of hard to read. So she, like, that middle short story was hard to read, knowing, like, the problem she had. It kind of felt like she was, like, I don't know, it was really gross, to be honest. So I'm like, I needed a break from it. I really like the stuff. I mean, in some ways I really like to separate the art from the artist, but like when I know what the artist was doing and it shows up, that creeps me out, essentially, okay? I don't want to go into details, but it was really just that short story. It wasn't the first novella or the novel, really. But it's kind of kept me away from The Bloody Sun because the Thieves' World story kind of reminded me of it as well. So, and you don't do bad things and you taint your stuff like this, taint yourself, and those around you anyways. So maybe I'll read The Bloody Sun as well, but we'll see. I don't know. So anyways, that is the books I generally might be read here. I know I'll finish Kingdoms of Death. I know I'll finish The Sword of the Lictor. And I almost certainly will do House of Suns in April as the buddy read, but besides that, that's a might be read. There's probably several other things I'll end up reading that I did not mention here. So, but let me know what you've maybe planned to read, and let me know if you want to read some of these with me. Some of these would probably be good introductions to things like The Forgotten Realms or Sword of Sorcery or any other related genres. I know Elder Race is kind of popular right now as well, so, but let me know. And this has been Liam's Lyceum. I'll catch you next time.